So we're not live yet?
There we go. We're live now. And we are live. Hello, this is We're Just Saying podcast, and Christmas here, and
Yo, it's Dave too.
yep. And tonight we'll be talking about retro gaming. I hope this phone isn't too loud. Let me try.
You can turn it down a little, man.
There we go. There we go. That's probably more manageable. Just we figured we'd have a classy start to this one because we're talking about, of course, retro gaming. That's that's what this channel's all about.
And if we're allowed to get away with it, I'd like to start every podcast with the intro to Mega Man 3. Because it's one of my favorite of the Mega Man intros.
Well, I mean, Mega Man is a classic series too. I mean, great music, great themes, great game. I mean, all around, except for the X series, especially X. I want to say X4.
What?
Kind of shitty, but
X4 was not shitty.
Was it X3 I'm thinking about?
No.
Shit, I can't remember.
Probably 7.
Or it might be
or
6.
6.
Yeah.
6 and 7 were the low points.
Yeah, but I prefer the old series because, well, I mean, there was one where they pretty much handed you all the upgrades. I can't remember which one it was, where you don't even have to go looking for them. It's just they're just there. That's one thing. That's one thing I loved about retro gaming, though. Like Mega Man series in particular. Like, wasn't it Danny who did Sequelitis?
No, that was Ego Raptor.
Ego Raptor, yeah. Yeah, it was Ego Raptor. Like Ego Raptor did, he covered it pretty well in Sequelitis that Mega Man X, it had the perfect amount of hand-holding in that game, where it showed you know what you can do. And
yes, but it doesn't magically hand you everything.
yeah, it does, exactly. It's the perfect.
And none of the Mega Man games on Super Nintendo and most of the ones on PlayStation didn't do that either. I haven't played much of 6. Mostly because it kind of sucked and I was...
Oh, you never played 6?
No, I played it, just not a lot of it.
Okay. Because I played...
7 and 8 are the ones I never played, but 7's reputation precedes it to such a level that I cannot feasibly ignore it. Yeah.
Well, I played almost all of them. Most of them I don't even freaking remember, to be honest. I'd have to go back and play them again, but it's...
Well, you have severe memory problems, so we'll let that slide. You get
yeah, I do. Really, I do. My memory problems are just the worst.
You should probably get those down to, like, really...
I should probably get
Okay,
them
we can stop with the music now. We can...
Yeah, let's stop with the music right now. But yeah, I think that was distracting both of us a little bit. 'Cause that was
mostly me because it wasn't constant. I'm not...
Yeah, he can't
Google
hear.
Hangout only picks up what's coming through his speakers, so...
Yeah, and it's kind of crappy when it goes through the speaker to the microphone. So yeah,
we have not mastered the art of Google Hangouts, so... I mean, we could, in theory, use Skype, but no.
Yeah, no. That's just no.
it's good enough for Nash. It's not good enough for me.
I've tried, and we've tried using Discord, but we couldn't get that to work. We couldn't figure out how to get Discord to work over this. Anyway.
And my can of Pepsi has disappeared.
We were talking about retro gaming. Back to
Yes.
we're just, I mean, just saying.
And when we talk retro gaming, where do you start? Well, it's always best to start at the beginning.
Well, I never had a ColecoVision though. But like I discovered earlier, my memories were foggy on that, and it wasn't a television I had, which.
So how many times did you remember jamming your thumbnail into that disc?
Oh God. Don't even don't even go there. God damn.
I know the later version, the disc was kind of raised to stop that from happening, but
that gamepad was just it's the worst. It's the worst. Because you got these 9 inlay buttons that you can swap out these little back panels for different games, and I'm like, why? Just why? You're trying too hard.
I had a school-appointed child psychologist. I didn't play in television till later, but he had one, and he knew that certain kids that would only respond when playing video games, and I was kind of like that. I was
Okay.
Wow, that was kind of a personal detail I should not have said.
Don't worry,
I had a
nobody knows
child
you.
psychologist. Well, it's because I had ADD.
I had ADHD as a kid too, so.
Weirded out about that.
Well, I had.
Well,
nothing like that.
ADHD, yeah, but what they never caught, which I found surprising, was the dyslexia. But then again, I never really articulated that things sometimes didn't seem in the right order, especially with numbers. For me, it was numbers.
Okay. For me, it's long sentences. I get lost in long sentences, like
It's like
paragraphs.
people are like, "What? Why do you have trouble with basic math?" And it's like, because you asked me what 123 and 123 are, and in my head I'm doing the math, and then the real answer gets mixed.
Yeah.
The real answer getting mixed up.
Maybe 246, by the way.
Yes, but I would say 46. I would say 4236.
Okay.
It would.
Get
The
jumbled
correct
in there.
numbers are there, but unless my brain pulled the old switcheroo on me while I'm doing the beginning of the problem. In which case it would read whatever 126 plus times 126, and I would just go and I would read it 162 times 126.
Ooh, that is, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, my problem is with long paragraphs.
But okay, now we're on learning disabilities.
I would literally skip like entire sentences because my eyes just couldn't keep up with the words on the paper. My brain thought too fast, basically.
And your focus would drift. Yeah.
Exactly. My brain just processes things too fast. Like when I'm typing, I type too fast for my brain to keep up. So I'll end up saying shit I'm not even thinking about, and like why? Yeah.
Okay, we really need to get back on topic.
Yeah. Sorry
Just
about
saying,
that.
we need to get back on topic here.
We keep on drifting off into disabilities for some damn reason. But yeah, I said I started off on the television. I grew up on games like Hubert, Pac-Man, the
Like,
normal shtick stuff,
I mean,
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
which of
Uh,
the which one of those is like the standout that you remember?
there was one game I cannot remember the name to, but it was a three-dimensional maze, and it had aliens that would come and kill you, and if you took a wrong turn, basically. It was all procedurally generated, as in you never knew. You know, there was no one
I've
set
heard of
defined
this one.
path,
And
and it's very minimalist. Minimalist. It is the most minimalist you can get. With
well, it
just
would have to be on in television.
it's a very minimalist game.
Well,
But it
it's
had
like
two colors, black.
ColecoVision, Atari, and Intellivision. It was like the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 of their days. It's like
Yeah,
in the way they were kind of balanced graphically.
but there was two colors, black and green. That was it. Through the whole
Yeah,
game, black and green. There would be green lines indicating, it's a wall there, or you could see, off in the distance, you could see you can turn left or you can turn right by, openings in the corridor. But
never
other
had
than
a game.
and the only thing you could do is turn left, turn right, go forward, or go back.
Now, was that like your favorite, or
No, that's just one that really stands out. Then there was Oregon Trail. That one stands out too, but that was, I believe it was a Commodore 64 title.
yeah, that was not an in television game.
Yeah.
When I say stands out, I meant sort of as your favorite on the
Oh, that's
console.
my favorite on the console.
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't have any favorites in television. I played them all pretty much equally. And oh boy, when I learned about glitches, or rather, when the game became corrupt enough, old enough that it started glitching out.
You just needed to clean those contacts, but that was before people realized that shit.
Yeah, that was back whenever people were still blowing on the contacts
No,
to
no.
clean them.
I don't even remember people blowing on cartridges back in those days.
Oh yeah,
That predates the blowing on the cartridge. That was
yeah, true, true, true. That was shaking it with your fingers vigorously. That was shaking it back and forth, then putting
then
it
again,
in.
it could just be because, as I recall from the Intellivision, you had to put those cartridges in deep, and they had
Yeah,
you'd get missed connections with them. It wasn't even because they weren't clean. It was just because you
just
didn't seek the game properly.
yeah. But yeah, when I found out about glitches, I had fun with that. Oh,
I mean,
'cause
I
you
was
got
an
those.
Atari 26 person.
Well, I mean, I had a Taro 26 as well.
Well, 2600.
100, yeah. Well, yeah,
I skipped
2600.
100 because I'm lazy. I shouldn't do that.
Wasn't there an Atari 5200, or what, am I thinking of something else?
Oh no. They stepped it up to 5200, which
Yeah,
was not a good console, merely because the controller was.
jank.
It
It was janky. It,
was the crappiest analog controller you can imagine.
why do you think they made so many sales? The That was whenever they started making those off-brand controllers as well. The generic controllers that people would buy instead of the actual
But
Atari
yeah,
controllers,
now
because the generic controllers, the off-brand controllers, were actually better than the actual systems controllers.
all right, man. But you had an Atari 2600.
I either had one or a friend had one. I can't really recall exactly.
I'm gonna guess your friend had it, cause
I'll say my memory back then is a little bit shaky.
Because having two consoles, having the Atari and the Intellivision, that was not.
Well, I mean, I had the Nintendo and the Genesis. I remember that clearly.
Yeah, but that comes. I mean, back in the day when video game consoles were coming out, like that stuff. I mean, pre-Crash to the Crash, yeah, having two video game consoles was not a thing people would think of as.
Well, yeah.
I mean, like, there was a time where it was like, well, you had two televisions?
We
What
had
are you, insane? Why would you ever need two televisions?
we had 3 televisions.
It's like, I don't have the clearest memories of the old days because I was born in '82.
79 here.
But when the Atari came out, even when the Nintendo came out, it was like, why would you need more than one video game system?
Oh yeah, because back then they all pretty much made the same games under different names.
Well, especially with, Atari, where everyone was ripping off everyone else and everything good, and,
Yeah.
the crash happened, all that crap. That was
No. One game that really sticks out though, E.T.
Not going into E.T.
Hey, this is a
We
retro
all-
games that we have to talk about E.T.
We all know about E.T. Everyone remembers E.T. as being janky as shit.
Yeah, that's
Except
putting it mildly.
having revisited it, it isn't. It's not nearly as bad as people said it was. It was not the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, no, that was
It just controlled kind of weird. But once you knew how it controlled, it was easy. Well, it
I'm
wasn't easy, but
I might actually go on my main. Whenever I go back to playing games again.
for
Well,
a
I mean-
game that took weeks to program, it came out pretty well.
But no, I was gonna say I might think about trying to play that game on a stream once.
Like
Just
E.T.
yeah,
Now, me, I was the Atari 2600 guy, and the games that stood out to me the most are games like Yar's Revenge,
oh,
where you're a cybernetic fly blowing up a force field around the base of a doomsday weapon. Those games were weird.
yeah, they got weird. Yeah,
Like my favorite games on the console, that I had Spy Hunt, that was
Ooh,
by
Spy
Sega.
Hunt.
Sega published Spy Hunt
yeah, that was a great game.
or Spy Hunter, and the cartridge was the Sega cartridge for an Atari
Wow.
2600. They
Wow.
had some weird shit. I
That
also
was-
had, but yeah, that. It is hard describing this thing because I love
Let's-
Spy Hunter.
Let's go up a little bit and go to the Nintendo and to the Sega
Dude,
Genesis.
just let me finish here.
Oh, sorry. I'm
We
sorry.
have a couple hours to fill, so
Yeah, true. We got a while. Sorry about that. But no, yeah, I mean, they had some interesting choices.
Well,
I mean, like
thing is,
one,
back then you had to improvise because
like
consoles did not have the power of the arcades by any means.
like with Dig Dug. Just why?
No, fuck you.
No,
That
I
was
mean,
my favorite game on Atari 2600.
it was a weird choice. Is all I'm saying. I mean,
No, it was the obvious choice because everyone had to have a port. That was the whole point.
No, I mean,
consoles back then
the
played the
actual.
arcade in your home.
No, I mean the actual story. The actual.
Well, yeah, Dig Dug was a trip.
Just, I mean, the actual mechanics of the game where you're digging a hole.
You're your exterminator who's exterminating garden pests. And that's what Dig Dug is. And he's doing that by exploding them brutally with a fucking bicycle pump. I mean, holy shit!
Yeah, you're blowing them up using a bicycle pump. Just
I had a cousin who came in on me, just skipping forward a bit, playing Aladdin, the Sega Genesis version of Aladdin.
oh, that
And
was fun.
when you slash people in that game, they disappear in a poof of smoke.
Yeah.
And she was horrified because she interpreted it as them exploding into bits. I'm like, bitch, play Dig Dug.
Yeah, play Dig Dug.
Okay, I didn't say bitch to her because she was a scary woman, and I did not fuck with my cousin Jenny then.
Wow.
She scared me. I was quite convinced back then if there was the kind of mean cousin that would put you in an oven and cook you alive, it was her.
That's another thing about back then, like the Intellivision and Atari 2600. There was much more third-party content than first-party content back then. They didn't so much worry about,
Well, there weren't controls.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's part of what brought about the crash.
The idea of guarding access to your console was just a foreign idea back then, which is why we had the crash.
Well, actually, I think part of the reason we had the crash as well was Nintendo got Sue happy.
No, that's not why.
Well, I mean, Nintendo
was not a major factor in home consoles back then. And remember, it was the console crash. It's the console market that crashed.
Yeah, true.
People were still playing video games in arcade.
Yeah.
There was still a market for them, at least on home computers. But people saw the idea of video games in the home as a passing fad.
But now,
when the crash happened. But
now also I did have a Commodore 64. At least I had a version of it. It was a Tandy system. Have you ever heard of Tandy?
No, I know what Tandy is.
Yeah, basically it's kind of similar to the Commodore 64.
It's the official computer of the Super Friends.
What?
No, I am not making that up. Look up Linkara. He reviews a bunch of comics of the DC superheroes promoting the Tandy 38, whatever it's insane.
Wow, I never knew that. But yeah, I had a Tandy back in the day, and it actually taught me a lot about GW. Well, it taught me a lot about BASIC. It didn't have GW BASIC. It just had BASIC on it. And basically, it had games you could buy on cassette tape, but it also had, instructions telling you how to write your own games using, using BASIC.
Oh yeah.
And that was pretty fun, actually. I mean,
well, the whole idea of the Tandy was one of those starter computers. It was.
Yeah. Like I said, it's similar to a Commodore 64, but not exact. It doesn't have all the processing power a Commodore 64 had.
But we're supposed to be talking about the games.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the games behind the Tandy too, because it had an extensive game library. They actually had because any game that worked on the Commodore 64 was supposed to work on the Tandy, because they're both cassette-driven systems. At least that they were, rather, I'm trying to say.
That's not really how it would.
Well, I mean, that's how I viewed it when I was a kid. In my kid eyes, anything that works on this should be able to work on that. It's not the case. It's not the case. It is definitely not the case.
It was the case for... Technically, it was the case for the ColecoVision because they built that that add-on that let you play Atari 2600
Yeah,
games.
yeah. But no, Tandy was marketed as saying we can play everything the Commodore 64 does. They said that they could do everything the Atari 64 did. Atari, goddamn it. Everything the Commodore 64 did. And it was just it was a cheaper system.
But that doesn't mean they still had the same operating
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah, exactly.
programming language, and that's the holy shit, man.
Yeah, it said that they advertised it badly because it led people to believe. I'm talking about this is
Did
back in
they
the
now?
80s
Did
when
they
they
actually advertise it badly,
well, they
or
said
did you
it could.
just misinterpret it because you were a kid?
I might have just misinterpreted it because I was a kid. That's probably what happened. But they said we
Uh,
could do everything the Commodore 64 does, and it's cheaper. So I misinterpreted that as, oh, it can play Commodore 64 games. No, it can't. Well, some of them it could. It could do some of them. Not perfectly. But some were compatible. Some Commodore 64 titles were compatible with Tandy, if I recall correctly. My memory might be foggy there as well. But I just remember that's the reason my parents bought the Tandy for me, was because of that. And I did play quite a few games on it, actual Tandy games, which there's weren't that many.
you wouldn't remember the weirdness that is Sword Quest then.
No, I would not.
Oh, the Sword Quest games that were. There were three of them. There was on the Atari 2600. There was supposedly going to be this competition. They never released the last one. Each one was based on one of the four elements. It was,
Oh God.
I don't. Basically, all it was a bunch of mini games.
What?
It would you would have all these different. You go around a maze. There'd be these different mini games for each one. And
Okay, I gotcha. Okay.
it's like WarioWare weren't the first to do that shit.
Rabbids, not even Rabbids. Well, Rabbids was only a thing
Well, just
coming
there'd
out with
be
the
different
Wii.
games you'd have to play with different gameplay styles, and it was
Okay.
and each cartridge, each version of the Sword Quest games had had different ones.
Oh, so it'd be kind of like the California games on the NES then, where
Kind
it
of.
had where it had like 6 different games in one game.
Yeah, except there were three of them, and
Okay.
there were three different cartridges. There were
Oh, okay. I get what you're saying now, but there was supposed to be 4 apparently. They
the
never
one I
released the
really,
last one.
one of the ones I really liked on Atari 2600 was this game called Atlantis,
I've heard of that game. I can't
where
remember it.
basically you pressed a button and held a direction to trigger a gun, either one of three lasers, one that fired directly up, one that fired direct, and there were two lasers. There was one on the left, one on the right. They fired diagonally towards the center.
That's
And
weird. Okay.
you'd
That's
have to
interesting.
blast ships, some of these ships, as they zoomed by, trying to drop bombs on your. Well, not trying to drop bombs. They'd laser sweep your cities, the different domes of your city of Atlantis.
And we're talking about right now. Those would be the 4-bit systems, wouldn't it, or 2-bit? 4-bit. The Commodore 64 was 2-bit.
I don't want to get into the bit wars yet. That's not a thing yet.
Yeah.
not
Well,
That's not the marketing gimmick that people that they sold to people yet.
not yet. Yeah.
Let's leave that alone.
For now. Because when we get to the Nintendos and the 8-bit systems, that becomes a huge deal.
Not even then.
Well,
People don't really start paying attention to that shit till you start going, well, it's 16-bit.
8-bit, yeah.
But
Flash processing.
oh dear lord, flash processing. No, I'm
Not yet. We're not that far yet. We haven't even gotten to the 8-bit systems yet.
I love Dig Dug. I love Dig Dug because, well, let's face it, you're blowing motherfuckers up with a bicycle pump. That was hardcore shit back in the day.
Well, then, I mean, you had Pac-Man who was eating hard drugs and then seeing ghosts.
If you want some real shit, you want the real shitty game of the Atari lineup. No, not E.T., Pac-Man.
Yeah. Pac-Man was on every system. It was on everything.
Yes, but on Atari, again, on Atari 2600, what they released was not a full game. It was a pre-alpha build prototype.
Oh, God, no.
That's what was released on Atari. You only had 2 ghosts on the screen. Everything was flickering to hell just to exist at once. The only great thing about the Atari were the janky-ass sound effects. Bang, 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 bang. Bloop, bloop, bloop. But I was a master of Atari Pac-Man. It was my first game. I was like playing it while I was 2. I mean, holy shit.
One of the first games I played, though, was Cubert, which I still don't get to this day. Why?
Because why not?
You're just trying to turn all the colors the same color, if I remember. Wasn't that the objective?
Well, yeah, you had to you had to change all of the squares on the pyramid to the one color, and there were enemies that would undo that.
Yeah, and you couldn't
guys
kill
that
them.
would chase you, and the only way you had of killing them was tricking them off the ledge.
Yeah.
By jumping on the discs as they followed you.
Yeah. But you can only stay on the disc for a certain amount of time before they disappeared.
If you want really janky, you should have seen it on the Atari.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to talk about the Atari because specifically you get games like Riddle of the Sphinx. Which, as a kid, I could never figure out. Because we got this game used. And I got it secondhand. So what I didn't know is that in the Riddle of the Sphinx, you need to be able to select different items and stuff. And you did that with a second controller.
Oh. One of those two-controller games.
It was like Raiders of the Lost Ark. You need the second button, so you had to plug in that other controller. And if you didn't know to do that, you were fucked.
Yeah.
It's like nowadays, oh, I can play Riddle of the Sphinx.
And I still remember those days. God damn it, wait an hour. In those days, they had games that were developed by, like, 2 people, 3 people, that, you know. Whereas now, we have entire teams of, like, thousands of people developing games.
And usually it would just be a couple of months to develop a game.
Yeah, if not weeks.
Except for E.T., which was literally one guy in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Nowadays, AAA titles take years to develop. It's just...
Then there was Tron. Tron Deadly Discs. Just that game
I'm just trying to imagine that with the old school Intellivision controllers.
Yeah, it got complicated.
Jamming your thumbnail into that thing by accident again. Like,
That
God,
too. It's painful memories.
jeez.
Ugh, painful memories of my jaw getting.
You want painful memories when you start wearing out an Atari controller's contacts. Playing with one, it becomes like trying to mix concrete by hand. It is. You do not want one of those controllers to start going south on you. It is not fucking pleasant by any means. Of course, I could just be remembering some third-party controllers. So.
Yeah, that's a possibility too, because there were a lot of them. There were a lot of third-party controllers
But yeah,
for every
my
system.
my other favorite game on Atari to finish things out was Berserk.
And what was that about?
Oh, Berserk was easy. You ran around a maze and shot murderous robots trying to shoot you.
Oh, that game. I remember that now. I remember seeing videos on that actually.
In the arcades, it would actually talk to you, you know.
Yeah.
Protect, get the humanoid, kill the humanoid. And what would happen is if you took too long in a level, Evil Otto would appear.
Yeah, Evil Otto.
And
Yeah.
what Evil Otto was the most terrifying thing you could get in the Atari era. A bouncing smiley face from the follow the lyrics thing that bounced right to you and murdered the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Once you saw Evil Otto forming, you were running. You did not want to deal with that shit.
I think I saw someone actually kill Evil Otto just one time.
No, you could kill Evil Otto in certain versions of that game. In the Atari version, he moved fast and it was hard, but if you killed him, he'd come back and he'd move faster.
Yeah.
Because they just built the bigger. It was like the board. They adapted.
That was the one. That was the one where your fire would ricochet off of the walls, isn't it?
No, that was the sequel, Frenzy.
Frenzy, yeah, that Frenzy, which also had Evil Otto in it, I think.
Yeah, and did even crazier things with it. But Frenzy only came out on the ColecoVision.
Okay.
And I so wanted a ColecoVision. I never got one. Until, you know, the Big E made it possible.
Until you can play it on emulator now. Yay for emulators. I wouldn't be able to do half my content without it. I mean, all the games I've played on emulator I have owned in the past, or own to this day.
One of the really amusing things about Berserk on the Atari was your guy. Well, in all versions, your guy was, you know, this basically an L, like stick figure with his head floating above his torso.
So not something you'd recognize as human.
In Atari, as I specifically remember it, there was no hitbox in that gap.
What?
So if an enemy shot at you, and you were just right, the bullet would go through where your neck is supposed to be without touching.
Wow, that...
You could shoot back and kill them.
Talk about bad programming, damn. That's
It
just...
wasn't bad programming, because you had to deliberately do that shit.
But no, that would require them actually programming in two separate hitboxes for... That sounds like an interesting...
That's not bad programming. That's just weird programming.
Yeah, because they would have to... Because see, the way games are designed, your hit area isn't actually what you see on screen. It's basically a tiny box, a literal square, well not square, but box, where your character is, and therefore it can conceivably hit ahead of you, and it not look like it hit you, but it actually does hit the hitbox. So that means they had
Well,
to program two in.
with a lot of Atari games, it's just when lines graphics intercepted graphic.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I mean, it was before the trick of the hitboxes, but
Yeah, it's just
I
when.
mean, it was just weird the way it worked back then because of that quirk.
Yeah,
You
because
had
it's.
this weird safe spot where occasionally some guy would just decapitate you with the shot, but it didn't count. And once you got to later levels of Berserk, those robots got mean.
Yeah. What was the ending? No, then again, that's another thing
There's no
about the.
ending in Berserk. Berserk was
That's what I was about to say. That's one weird quirk about all these games.
that was before games had endings.
Yeah. Well, and that's one interesting feature too about Pac-Man. Going back to it, you can get to level. I forgot what level it was. I think it was 250.
256.
Yeah, 256, where it just goes insane because it doesn't know how to program it because it can only count up to 255, and that's another limitation is the actual number, the bytes, not bits, bytes of data.
And if you want something really interesting, there is a game, Pac-Man 256,
Oh God.
that's made by the people that did Crossy Road with the chicken. That's, basically Infinite Frogger,
Okay.
where you're Pac-Man maneuvering a maze, trying to outrun the death glitch of level 256.
But no, it starts going crazy and then it just stops. It's like it just crashes basically.
Yeah.
So because people actually got that in the arcades to happen. It actually happened in the arcades quite a bit, where
Just
they'd have
because
to.
at some point the hardware simply cannot keep up
Yeah, because
with the up cycle of
it's
the.
a byte over. It's called a byte overstack. It does not know how to go back after 255, so it just overstacks and then it just crashes. At least that's how I was.
But yeah, but in theory the game is supposed to be infinite.
Yeah, in theory.
It's like
But they-
Tetris, except Tetris isn't infinite because in older versions of Tetris you'd inevitably always get to the point
where it's too fast.
where it is literally too fast to compensate for.
Yeah, unless you have a good TAS.
Huh?
I'm gonna have to look that up. Tool assisted. A tool assisted speedrun device. Basically, it's a computer that it can do things a hell of a lot quicker than a human brain can, human hands can do.
No, I mean it's faster than there gets a point where it can't even outpace inputs.
Oh
It is
yeah,
literally too fast to do anything, and the
Yeah.
blocks will stack.
yeah, true, yeah. I'll have to look that up sometime though. See how.
Later, they came up with the interesting idea that as long as the block is still turning, it doesn't set.
Huh.
Which is how later versions of Tetris you see where high level play goes on. That's the rule.
Yeah. Interesting. But now, since you brought up Tetris,
Yes, let's move on to 8-bit.
that's moving on to the 8-bit systems.
The video game crash happened. People lose faith in home consoles. And then,
The Super
from the land of the rising sun,
the Nintendo Famicom.
also
Family
Sega Master
console.
System, but who gives a fuck about Sega Master System?
The Nintendo Famicom arrives, and it hits off with a blast in Japan, reinvigorating the home console. generation.
Well, in Japan, it was never really destroyed.
There was just a
But
murky gray area where,
it's kind of the West where the crash really happened. But
yeah,
it's their attempts to break into the market in America that saves it
yeah,
here. So.
and Nintendo was, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they just sell card games at that time? And
Huh?
weird, they sold.
No, they branched out into electronic games with stuff like Game and Watch and their arcade games.
And pachinko machines.
Yeah, so
Oh,
they were getting into
pachinko.
the electronics stuff. I mean, everyone liked the idea of arcades because people weren't paying for the expectation of prizes, so there was no money lost.
Yeah.
They were
That was
playing. They were paying simply to play a fun game.
at home.
Well, in the arcades.
Well, yeah, in the arcades too, but we're talking about the home systems, really.
Yes, but Nintendo started in the arcades. I gotta make that
Yeah.
clear.
Well, Sega did too, really. Sega had some interesting arcade games, to say the least. Stuff like,
Yes, but
damn it, what was the name of that game? Golden Axe, for instance. Was that a Super Genesis? That was a Genesis, wasn't it?
no, that was in arcades first. That was an
Yeah,
awesome game.
I thought so. Yeah, yeah, it was an awesome game, but it it was interesting. It was an interesting because it was one of the first like side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Really,
Hey.
besides Double Dragon. My
And
memory.
Renegade and all those other ones.
Yeah, you got a point.
No, Golden Axe came later. That was.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. Like I said, my memory is shoddy sometimes, most of the time. But no,
But yeah, here comes Nintendo, and it's not a video game console. It's an entertainment
payment system. But it was a game console.
where it's like people are like, oh well, they had to sell it as a toy
Yeah,
in order to
because
appeal to people, and well, yeah, it did sort of introduce a marked the idea of a gender divide into gaming.
yeah, it did.
I'm sorry, people tried to deny that. No, they did because people decided, well, if it's going to be in the toy aisle,
We've got to market
we'll
it to
divide
one
in
or
our
the
toy
other.
stores by gender in a lot of ways. So
Yeah. So it was sold mostly to boys. Well, it was
there were,
marketed towards boys.
and that was kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, because there are a lot of girl gamers out there too. I mean,
I mean, one of the arcade greats, Centipede, was created by a female programmer.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of.
We're not getting into this. We're not going all Gamergate on you guys. We're not going there.
Plenty of other people have done that topic, and we're not. That's not the point of this discussion. That's not what this conference is about. Not what this podcast is about.
My first experience with the Nintendo Entertainment System was with at a second cousin's house. He had a ferret, and he had a Nintendo, and I played Russian Attack, and it blew my fucking mind.
The first game I played on Nintendo is the most generic thing that you will ever hear. Super Mario Duck Hunt.
That's not. That's not. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Super Mario Brothers. Back then, that was like holy shit.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about looking at from today's context. That's
It's
the
like,
most
yeah,
generic thing because that's what it was sold with. That's what the system was sold with, was Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt was in the one cartridge.
but yeah, the one time I played Nintendo, the first time I played Nintendo, and I realized I need this in my life. I gotta beg my parents for this. I need to promise to sell my soul to Satan for this. It was at a cousin's house, and the first game I played, Russian Attack.
There was one,
It was a second cousin I didn't even know that well. I don't think I'd ever
Tiger Heli.
gone back to that guy's house.
There was one game that I played that was called Tiger Heli on NES, and it it was my first shmup I ever played, and I don't believe that it ever had an actual ending to the game. I say that because I never quite got that far. I got pretty far.
Well,
About 3 or 4 hours into the game far.
to a lot of little kids, there were no endings to a lot of these games.
I want to see it.
I
This
mean,
is
but yeah, you played Tiger Heli. I played Russian Attack. The second game I played was Double Dragon.
yeah, that's Tiger Heli. There was another one where it was a spy game where you just rode in this car the entire time.
But yeah, when I wanted to when I realized I was like when I was did the little kid thing of asking my parents for a Nintendo for Christmas, I said, and Double Dragon, it's got to be Double Dragon.
Oh, Double Dragon, yeah.
And so Double Dragon was the first game that I played on my very own Nintendo.
Wow.
Well, what can I say? I was big into kung fu action. My father, I knew about Jackie Chan before he was cool.
Was it Spy Hunter? Yeah, it was Spy Hunter. That's another game I remember very well. It was a really fun game. I mean,
On Nintendo?
yeah, on NES, Spy Hunter.
Ah, I was trying to which version because that was ported to everything.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Then there was Spy versus Spy, which was an interesting
Spy
game.
versus Spy was a weird one.
That was interesting to say the least.
I always love that the whole versus thing of you just trying to screw each other over.
Yeah. The white one versus the black one, and that's incredibly racist. That's
Well,
just
no, just because it was their clothes that were,
well, yeah, true, but
and neither
still,
of them were good or evil, so
yeah, true,
they were
true.
both just kind of dicks.
To each other, yeah.
But yes, the first game I played on Nintendo, Double Dragon. Have you ever played Double Dragon on Nintendo?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I remember specifically playing that. It was
Do you
fun.
remember rage quitting when you got to the part where they actually expected you to do platforming?
Oh God, I could not. I don't think I ever beat that part, to be honest.
I never beat Double Dragon as a child.
No, me neither.
I would get to that point in the caves where you have to do the jump, where you have to press A and B at the same time to jump,
Yeah.
and you have to jump kick from one floating boulder thing to the next, and that was it. I always died.
I think I rage quit. I think I literally rage quit at that point. I think I was the type that actually did throw the controller. I mean, I've
I
since
did,
corrected
I
that
did
problem.
throw the controller, and then I'm like, oh crap, did I just break the controller? Please don't break the controller.
Yeah. Because then you'd
And
have
at
to go
that
buy
point,
a
I
new one.
realized something. I would throw more controllers, and I had to take precautions. So I'd always have a pillow in like the far corner of the room, and I would just throw my controllers at that.
The reason I'm laughing so hard is because I did the same goddamn thing.
Like I like ah.
Like, oh god, thank you. Thank you, pillow, for saving my controller.
Except every
That
once
was,
in a while, you'd miss the pillow, and you'd be like, God damn it!
yeah. Now, that was the age of rage quitting right there, because there
Yes,
were a lot of
and
games.
especially because of the rental market.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
There
Oh
were
yeah.
so many games I just rented.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
Oh, okay. Like Dig Dug 2. You want to talk about weird games? There's Dig Dug 2.
That
Where
one I don't think I ever played.
they took the Zelda 2 approach to a sequel.
Oh god, no. I mean, looking back on Zelda 2, that was just a weird choice to, I mean...
Well, I mean, there was no set in stone thing about how the game should play out. They
Yeah,
wanted to
but I
innovate,
mean...
so...
But introducing platforming elements...
Well, making it two-dimensional, that wasn't that bad, the thing. It wasn't a bad game. It was just hard as balls.
Yeah. Especially whenever you're hitting these areas where you're have these huge gaps with these water monsters that just keep on flying at you at weird fucking angles, while on the bottom is shooting fire at you. Anything hits you, you instantly fall in the water and die.
Well, here's the point where instruction booklets start becoming absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Because you have to know how to use spells and stuff in
Yeah.
Zelda 2. And once you do, it becomes a playable game.
Yeah. Once you figure out, oh, I can just become a fairy and fly over this.
And what happened was you got a whole lot of people that would get like, because there was another thing that started rising up in the Nintendo era, Funko Land. And so you get a lot of people who got used games without instruction booklets.
Yeah, and then...
And
yeah.
God damn it, I always read the instruction manuals because
Me too.
they almost always had cool art and shit in them.
No, this is the true story. Every time I bought a game in the store, since we live so far away from the stores and stuff, I would literally read the instruction manuals in the car as we were driving home. I would literally take the time, open up the game and everything, pull out the instruction manual, and read the damn thing.
I used to just store them in a drawer. I had hundreds of instruction manuals from Atari 2600, or not hundreds, but dozens of them from old Atari 2600 games, and
I did the same thing.
And stuff like that.
Except for I had a box I had mine in, and it eventually got thrown away.
But did you have a favorite Nintendo game?
I really have to think on that, because my favorite, I think, would have to be Tiger Heli, actually. It was the first game that ever got me into shooting my... It's the one... That's the one game that I actually replayed over and over as a kid. I mean, that's the one game I remember playing the most as a kid. That and Super Mario Brothers, of course. I mean, and Zelda. Oh my God, Zelda. No, strike that. Zelda was my favorite. Because I played that game so many times, the battery wore out on it, and it could no longer save games on it.
Me, there were a couple.
I just named a couple. Spy Hunter was another one.
Well, I'm just going to say the Mega Man franchise.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that. I didn't think about the Mega Man games.
I was all about the Blue Bomber. Holy shit, I was all about Mega Man.
Mega Man I didn't get into until like Mega Man 2, Mega Man. I only played. I never played all of them. I know I played Mega Man 2 because of that song that is constantly in my head.
What, the
Da,
Wily
da.
Castle?
Yeah, Wally Castle from 2. That is my favorite video game song in the world right now. That
DuckTales was one of my favorites on Nintendo.
DuckTales? What?
The Duck
I did not know that was a game.
That was a game. That was a Capcom game. That was a
Oh man,
damn
I
good
just remembered
Capcom game.
Chippendale Rescue Rangers.
That was all right.
That was
But it
also
was
another one of my
no
favorites.
DuckTales. Dude, just when we are done here, you're gonna have to listen to DuckTales Moon Theme.
Oh, I know about that game now. Yeah, I haven't. I didn't play it myself. No, yeah, I did play it. I remember playing it now.
Because
Yeah.
you can do the pogo stick thing.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I played that. Yeah, I have played that. I forgot all about that for some reason.
It's like when the remaster came out, holy crap, that was just with all the voice
Yeah.
actors and the cell art from the cartoon.
Oh,
the original
yeah.
cartoon, and that was just
Man, I forgot about DuckTales, the series on TV, too. I watched, like, the first 3 episodes of that. The Disney DX re-release of DuckTales.
oh god, I like that show.
But I forgot all about it until just now. So I have a lot of catching up to do with that series.
Yeah, Mega Man X or Mega Man. Mega Man was one of my favorites. DuckTales. Let's see, the Kunio-kun games that got ported to America. River City Ransom and Super Dodgeball and Crash and the Boys.
Man,
Because nobody knew that these games were connected in America. We just knew that they were by probably the same guys and that they used the same kind of graphics, those doofy little dude graphics. And that whenever somebody took a hit, they got those crazy, hilarious-ass bulging eyes, like, boom. But yeah,
yeah.
Super Dodgeball, another one of my favorite games. First game I ever truly won on
How
Nintendo.
how about this? The worst games on the NES, or rather, the ones we rage quit a lot on, or we could never figure
Or
out
just
how to
hated,
play.
that I hated, that I absolutely fucking hated, and I
Yeah.
wanted to die with the burning vengeance of 1,000 fucking suns.
Yeah.
Oh. Pick an LJN game.
I can't think of any LJN games right now. Let me think.
Okay, there were some LJN games that were just not interesting. They weren't offensive, like Back to the Future.
Oh God, Back to the Future. What the fuck were they thinking? I mean,
Man, Back to the Future wasn't that bad.
But-
It was just a 2D shooting scroller that was just weird. No, you want
Wait,
bad. You
Who
want to
Framed
say
Roger
what the
Rabbit?
fuck they were thinking, man? X-Men.
Oh no. How about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where you had to call that phone number in order to get, past a certain point in the game, and where now you couldn't play it if you wanted to because that phone number no longer exists, and besides, it cost you money to call the fucking phone number. So even as a kid, you couldn't call it unless you got your mom's cell phone, your mom and dad's
Yeah,
credit
but
card
even
number.
as a game, that thing still at least functioned. X-Men was just
Or Friday the 13th.
X-Men was X-Men was this buggy piece of crap.
Yeah, it was. I remember playing it now. And
I mean, think about it. The animation for anyone that had a melee attack that was strength or base, like Wolverine or Beast or whatever, it was just that their sprite jumped forward a little bit with the arm out.
what about Spider-Man: Return of the Sinister Six?
Never played it.
Oh man, you missed out. Oh, RoboCop. The clunkiest piece of shit game
Oh.
ever made. RoboCop is just the worst. Just ugh. Or
I
okay.
rented once Silver Surfer.
Oh God, Silver Surfer. I just saw Ryucar beat
Fuck
that game.
Silver Surfer.
I just saw Ryucar playing that earlier today, and I'm like, ugh. I'm glad I didn't play that as a kid.
Like as much as Lord Cat was a douchebag, he was right. This game wasn't designed for human beings.
Yeah, it was designed for computers because that's the only way you're going to be able to beat it is when a TAS is hooked up to it.
How do you put it? Then there's the magic dimension. Pretty much this game's difficulty level has followed a logarithmic rhythmic curve. But suddenly it's left the curve and gone into an entirely new piece of fucking graph paper.
Oh, and then there was one game where you couldn't beat at all until later on, like way later on, Jaws, because it doesn't tell you what you have to fucking do.
Yeah, but you could at least play Jaws.
Yeah, but it never tells you, how to actually play Jaws. You have to figure that shit on your own.
Again, we're talking about games where you just needed to read the instruction booklet.
From what I recall with Jaws, even the instruction booklet didn't help much
You're probably right.
because it just tells you how to play it. It doesn't tell you the object. Well,
I
besides killing Jaws,
I do
but
remember one LJN game on Nintendo that I did actually enjoy, though.
let me guess, Karate Kid.
No. Fuck no.
But Karate Kid was actually I actually enjoyed Karate Kid.
I'm talking about the Punisher.
Oh, the Punisher. Oh God, yeah, that was a great game there.
It was not a great game, but it was that I
I was being hyperbolic. I was
where
being
you could
sarcastic.
destroy everything in the environment with gunfire and you could blast guys. There were some interesting ideas and concepts,
Yeah.
and it was
Then of
basically
course,
the Terminator like mounted gun games, except you actually had a guy and you could actually dodge fire and stuff.
then you had that one classic that was in every
And the one
arcade.
thing I really liked is there was the one guy playing saxophone on screen who was just the sound effect, the soundtrack for the level. And if you shot him, the music went away.
Yeah. But no, there was another game, not LGN, but damn it, it was in my head earlier. Now Rampage, Rampage. That game everybody has played almost. Like at least I'm pretty sure.
A game of my hometown.
Where you destroy your hometown.
Yes. Bye bye, Chicago.
Where you just go on a rampage. Literally, that's the entire premise. You go on a rampage as either Godzilla or,
And
well,
then
not
you
Godzilla.
accidentally eat a toilet.
Where you go as generic giant lizard, generic giant wolf, generic gorilla.
It was something Ralph and Lizzie.
Yeah,
George, Ralph, and Lizzie.
yeah. Where it's not actually the characters, but it is the characters. Yeah. I still got to see that movie, by the way.
When you actually get killed, you shrink back down to a regular human in the arcade versions.
Yeah, I remember that too. That was pretty funny. And it's
Or
a
the more graphic version of the remaster, or the eventual remaster, Rampage 60, the Rampage World Tour or whatever it was.
well, I remember there was a version of it. If you shrunk down, you still had a chance to grow back up as the giant beast, as long as the other character doesn't kill you first. But that was two-player mode.
And you could eat people, yeah.
Yeah, and you could eat people. If
The
the
World
second
Tour
player
was
eats you,
cool. I can't remember what the reboot of Rampage was called though. The first
me
one.
neither. Me neither. Well, anyway, that about wraps it up for the NES era, the 8-bit era.
Well, we still got a
Or
few good mentions to do for the 8-bit era, like Guardian Legend.
that one I haven't. Oh man, I just thought of another one.
That's one you should play, man. That is one you need to fucking play. Guardian Legend is.
I just thought of another one that it was an LGN title too, but
Oh, dear lord.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Where do I even begin with that game? It made no goddamn sense.
You
It
know what was weird on Nintendo? The Flintstones games.
just a Nightmare on Elm Street. It didn't. It just like what were they thinking? When
Yes, we've all seen the Nostalgia Critic. Or not the Nostalgia Critic, but the Angry Video Game
the
Nerd.
nerd,
Damn it!
yeah, AVGN, yeah. Just what the what type of LSD were they on to make them what brand of weed were they smoking when they came up with that shit? I mean, I actually had fun playing it. It's just insane. It's just an insane game. I enjoyed it as a kid. Don't get me wrong. It's just what the fuck.
You know, the one that came out of left field for me was Mario Brothers 2.
Oh god, you mean Doki Doki Panic?
No, I mean Mario Brothers 2. That engine was developed for Mario, so fuck it.
Oh, you mean the Super Nintendo release? Whenever they finally came around to releasing it, because they thought the real one was too
No,
hard
I
for
mean
Americans.
what? No. Oh, for fuck's sake. The game engine they used for Doki Doki Panic was originally made as a Super Mario prototype sequel. But this was still early in the console's lifespan, and they weren't sure how it would run on the console. So they just shelved it and, half-assed a sequel using, assets from the original game.
Oh, okay, that much I didn't know. Damn.
Until what's-their-names came by with wanting to do a thing, and they did Doki Doki Panic for them using the engine. And yeah, and it wasn't a Japanese person that thought it would be too hard. It was Nintendo of America's president. It was like, who thought that, wow, this game is just a dickish version of Super Mario Brothers. It's not going to sell here.
Well, the reason it was dickish is because Shigeru Miyamoto was going through a really depressive phase at that point, and he got dickish because he was depressed.
I also recall he wanted to use the other engine. It's why his favorite of all the Super Mario titles is American Super Mario Brothers 2. Because to him, that's how it always should have been. That's what he wanted for Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, and that's what got him depressed to begin with, and that's what made him made.
So people, listen. When you hear someone say, "Don't you mean Doki Doki Panic?" you say, "No, I mean Super Mario Brothers 2, the way Shigeru Miyamoto fucking meant it to be."
Yeah. Hi. But that game, it was fun. I mean, I did enjoy it too. It wasn't my favorite out of the Super Mario Brothers. That's reserved for Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo, but that's just me.
Yeah. My favorite's still Yoshi's Island.
Oh, you should see a randomizer of that.
My favorite's Super Mario World.
No, you need to see a randomizer of Yoshi's Island. That is.
The weird thing is,
that shit goes insane.
I never owned a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3.
Seriously?
Yeah, I didn't own it until Super Nintendo, and I got a copy of All Stars.
Oh, okay. Well, damn, I owned all of them except for, well, I owned them coming up to the Wii. Well, technically, yeah. I only had new Super Mario Brothers on the Wii. I didn't get any of the other ones, like the 3D ones. I never got into the 3D ones.
There was one game I had on regular Nintendo. I believe I freaked you out with once on one of my live streams. Sky Kid.
Oh God! Like what the?
I think the favorite thing about that is when you play it and you start flying from right to left instead of the standard
left to right.
Right.
Yeah.
I loved that game. You could do loop-de-loops. You could do all that shit. You had evasive maneuvers.
Oh, kind of like Star Fox? Only not in the 3D, just 2D, yeah.
Except that it came first and way before Star Fox.
Yeah.
Then you could bomb the base at the end and shoot the women and turn them into polar bears. It was just good old-fashioned Namco weirdness. Yeah, it's a Namco game. It's by the people that made Dig Dug. That should explain a lot. But yes, as we draw closer to the latter half of the Nintendo's life cycle, we see a new challenger emerge.
Yeah.
Or an old challenger we just fucking ignored. Until Genesis does.
Blast processing. Oh God, that. What is blast processing though? I mean, seriously.
There actually was a thing called blast processing. It just didn't do what they claimed it did.
That and the fact that it wasn't a true 16-bit system. It used two 8-bit cores, and basically they didn't know how to make 16-bit systems. Sega, that is. Nintendo made a true 16-bit system.
Other games would utilize the hardware better,
but basically it was a dual core.
Beyond Oasis, they could do some 16-bit shit on. It's just.
It was basically a dual core 16-bit system, just two 8-bit cores. But that's not true 16 bits.
Except you did get games that were true that displayed 16-bit. You did. I'm sorry. Again, beyond Oasis. I'm sorry that game's color palette is as full as any Super Nintendo games.
It could emulate 16-bit. It didn't have true 16-bit though. It emulated 16-bit graphics.
Don't start with. We're not getting into this.
Yeah, that's.
We're not about the hardware debate right now.
Yeah, more about the games themselves.
Now, I didn't own the Sega Genesis.
Me neither. I never owned the Sega Genesis, so I can't really say anything about the Genesis. But I did own.
My friend Sean owned a Super Nintendo.
I did own a Super Nintendo myself, though.
But he was going to get a Sega, so he gave me his Super Nintendo.
Oh, well, that was nice of him. And the first game I ever played on mine was...
Rashawn Hobbs, you are, and always will be the fucking man.
But no, the first game I ever played on my Super Nintendo was Final Fantasy VI, or as it was known here in the United States, Final Fantasy III.
Super Mario World.
I mean, I had Super Mario World as well, but when when my parents bought the Super Nintendo, they also bought Final Fantasy III. They bought several other games. I can't remember all the games they bought, but they bought quite a few games for me. But the one I played the most was Final Fantasy 3 because that just, I mean, my favorite game. And you
I
could
got a
probably,
lot of weird games on the console.
I mean, I played
I
all the
got
other,
stuff like,
I had played all the other Final Fantasies on the Nintendo too. So I mean,
well, I mean, I got I got Twisted Tales of Spike McFang.
and then came along Chrono Trigger.
I'm not going there yet because Earthbound.
I have never actually played Earth. Well, I played a little bit of Earthbound, but I've never beaten Earthbound.
See, there
So
was Zelda.
yeah, I've got Zelda. Yeah, that's another one I had.
I had I had Fatal Fury on Super Nintendo.
No, wait, no, wait. I'm wrong. I was wrong.
No, no, not Fatal Fury. Samurai Showdown.
The Super Nintendo, I completely forgot. I got the Super Nintendo one Christmas. About I want to say the year it came out, or either the year after it came out that Christmas. And then later that year, it was around September or October. I had saved up just enough money to go to the Walmart and buy Final Fantasy 3 myself. Well, when Mom and Dad asked me what was in this bag, I showed them the game, and they said return it. I'm like, what? I just bought it. And he's like, no, you can't buy that. I'm like, why not? He's like, because we already bought you that for Christmas. So I'm like, what? I'm like, okay, I can wait a couple months to get it, and I returned the game and bought something else. I can't remember what it was I bought, but I returned the game that same day. I literally went back up to the counter and said, I want to return this, and they gave me money back and everything. But still, I mean, talk about being heartbroken and then being over ecstatic at the same time, because I wanted to play that game, but I had to wait a couple months for Christmas to come.
You know what game I'll always remember fondly on the SNES?
What was that?
F-Zero.
F-Zero? Oh, okay.
It's the music, and the speed, the running people into the bumpers. Okay, but I'm just gonna step back from F-Zero. F-Zero. But yeah, I had All Stars. All Stars was just, you had to have Super Mario All Stars.
But yeah, I mean, just I can't think of any bad Super Nintendo games, really.
But I also had weird ones like Sonic Blast Man.
Oh god, I just remembered one.
What?
Balls 3D. That was the
Like,
weirdest. That was the weirdest game I'd ever even. And I actually owned a
weirdest one?
copy.
I asked my parents for Secret of Mana. What I got was a copy of Illusion of Gaia.
What? Okay.
A game I had, at that point, not really heard much about. But it came with the free t-shirt. And then I played the game and I was like, hey, this is actually pretty good. But yeah, that was kind of the way things happen.
And then there was Donkey Kong Country. Those were fun
Never,
games.
never owned that one.
What?
I never owned a copy of Donkey Kong Country. Well, later I did, but that was...
Well, yeah. I guess I was lucky, and I mean, well, then again, we came from a middle to upper class family, and yeah, I pretty much got whatever I wanted. I go into a store, say, "Mommy, I want this." All right, go get the manager. No, go get the woman over here so she can open up the door. pick it
You want
out,
the
walk it up
you
to
want the
the
bizarre
buy it.
thing? I got Othello on Nintendo.
Othello.
Don't ask why.
The only thing they wouldn't let me buy was comic books, though. That I can never wrap my mind around that. Why they did not want me reading comics.
Because comics had the stigma of anti-intellectualism to them.
Yeah, but most of the smart people I know read comics.
Yeah, well, that's not that wasn't the that wasn't how most people saw it.
Yeah, that's why
It's
I'm.
like, hey, here we're combining pictures and words, something that would get people to read that normally wouldn't read.
Now, we've
So
talked about
let's.
some. We talked about some of the good games of Super Nintendo.
It's like you want the real reason why the McCarthyism was so hard on comic books. It's because comic books encourage kids to read, and people that read are less likely to vote for people like McCarthy.
Yeah. Well, McCarthy was the one who brought about yellow journalism. Really, I mean, really badly. That is. Yellow journalism was a thing before McCarthy, but it exploded under McCarthy. Just
Yellow journalism.
uh, we're talking about games here, not political. Let's not get into politics right now. That can be a whole nother discussion. But no, we've talked about some of the good games. Let's talk about some of the bad ones. Like Mario is Missing. A game
Had this game called Crossbones. Ugh.
where they took all the fun out of Mario and put in just uh, random factoid game. Just where you have to learn these random facts about every goddamn thing.
There were some real shitty ones on Super Nintendo, but after Super Nintendo, I eventually got my hand was able to get my they released a cheaper version of the Sega Genesis, the Sega 2, and I got one of those. And oh god,
Or another
that
bad title for the Super Nintendo.
but
Super
yeah.
D Super 3D Noah's Ark.
Okay, stop just looking at angry video game nerd. Just can you
Yeah.
actually remember the bad titles that you played?
Mario is Missing. And Super I remember I had the Noah's Ark game, which was just terrible.
You actually owned the Noah's Ark game?
Yes, I had Super 3D Noah's Ark. We were a very religious household at that time.
I
Yeah.
don't remember that many bad games on Super Nintendo because I had Nintendo Power, and usually I was pretty good at figuring out what the good stuff would be from, what little they said. I mean, they didn't fool me much.
Hold on a second.
There were times.
Hold on a second. I got somebody I gotta talk to real quick.
Um, okay. Well, I guess the podcast is on hold. Awkward silences, me talking to myself. I'll just play Destiny 2 silently while this happens. Oh yeah, but shit. Didn't let me mention the Powered Blade games or Shatterhands. Shatterhands, that was an awesome game. You punch bullets out of the fucking sky. That was all Nintendo era. Some bad SNES games. There was this pirate game I had that was just, it was loathsome. But I cannot, for the life of me, Was it Crossbones? Was it Skull and Bones? It was something like that. Oh, and then there was Bebe's Kids. They don't die, they multiply. Then they turn your console into shit.
Sorry, I'm back now. Sorry about that. What were you saying now? Because I completely missed what. God damn.
Bebe's Kids was a shit game that I actually had the displeasure of playing.
Oh, Baby's Kids. I remember. Oh, God. Has anyone ever actually beaten that game? I'm sure there has been, probably. By now.
I mean, surprisingly, one of the better games or one of the games I more fondly remember on both Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis was True Lies.
True. What?
Yeah,
How is that?
LG made a good licensed video game.
Well, LGN's made some good
They
licensed
made
video games.
several of them, but
LGN's made some good games, but they've also made some pretty terrible ones too.
yeah, but the True Lies games were not among the terrible ones.
Okay. But my number one, as far as I remember, as terrible games go, Shaq Fu. Just
I've played it.
Shaq Fu. I mean, seriously.
Fuck you for making me remember it.
Yeah. That was just a horrible game.
Ugh.
And
There's
like I
also
said,
this-
like I said earlier, Balls 3D was just that was just a what the fuck game. But
yeah, Balls 3D was terrible. I did play that one.
so it wasn't just selective memory that you forgot, quote unquote, forgot about it.
I just chose not to remember them. I didn't want to remember them.
I don't know whose idea that was, though. I mean, just my God.
There was, what's his name, Lambert's cyber basketball or whatever the fuck it was. It was robot basketball nonsense. I can't even get into it. That game was shit.
just.
You wanted some really interesting ones that weren't all that great, but did interesting things. There was there was there was Stanley Cup and
Oh,
NCAA
yeah.
basketball, where it was the behind the player perspective going down court,
Yeah.
and no other game had done that outside of the arcade's running gun.
There was one Madden game that I did play, but only because I knew this one awesome glitch to it where you could run back as the quarterback and then pass it to the furthest player to the right, and he would always catch it. So what you would do, you run to the opposing player's goal and pass it, and then you'd get a goal automatically. But you had to select the right exact what you call it right exact play at the right exact second. That way the sprite limit fucks up in the programming, and then the glitch happens. So if you knew exactly what to do and what to press at at what time, you could win that game easily. You can
I'll
beat
tell you what
anybody.
games were always a blast. The NBA Jam games.
Oh yeah, where you could. Oh God.
Where you were literally on fire and do downtown dunks from halfway across the court.
Yeah, or you could play as Abraham Lincoln or Bill Clinton in
Bill
one of
Clinton.
them.
Bill Clinton.
I remember that playing as Bill Clinton all the damn time.
Do some slick Willie work.
Yeah. But now one game I'm starting to remember now. ActRaiser. that
Oh,
that was
Path
an
Tractor.
that was an interesting game.
That was a game that made me give about a few $100s to Blockbuster.
Renting it all the time.
Oh yeah,
It was a
that,
fun
that was.
game. It was interesting. I mean, just it
Oh no,
was.
that was a fun game. That was.
Yeah, I'm saying it's fun.
I mean, you had the laid back sort of like simulator thing, and then you had those tough as nails platforming action sequences. It was
Yeah,
an awesome mix, and one of the another Enix classic, like again, Illusion of Gaia.
Yeah. Let me think.
Ah, and it made me remember another game that I just lost. Damn it! Come back! Come back! Damn you!
How about Mega Man Soccer? One
Oh,
game where they just tried to inject Mega Man into anything they could possibly think of.
now, during E3, or during the Nintendo years, what happened is I went to the Consumer Electronics Show in '93, the year they made it open to the public. And at the Consumer Electronics Show, I was exposed to two games that would forever change.
But we're gonna have to end it on the Super
Because,
Nintendo bit though, because I've got to go soon.
all right, well, let me get this out here because I was walking down the aisle for Super Nintendo and or this walking around the Super Nintendo stuff, and there on a big screen was Mega Man X,
Oh yeah.
and I picked that up, and it was just mind blowing.
You
And
want
I
to?
was like,
Sorry. Go on.
and after that, I was just wandering around in a daze, like nothing else could be better than this. I trolled the one guy doing there they had this display where one guy was doing this where it was just Wario, where it was obviously some guy with a talking into a microphone somewhere, and it's just a program track doing the animation tracking his speech or something. But I kept asking him questions out of the super, out of Nintendo Power just to mess with them.
Wow.
Then I found the second game because they were advertising Wario Land. We'll do handheld some other time, but we got to do
Yeah.
handhelds.
Yeah.
But then I was going into the Sega aisle, and I found the game that would make me want a Sega Genesis. Boom! Gunstar Heroes.
Oh God. Yes.
I eventually owned Gunstar Heroes.
Hmm.
The game that is just run and gun madness personified. The game where half the enemies you don't shoot, you pick up and throw at other people. It's just there's just so many things you can do in that game. It's just I will leave off with my other favorite Super Nintendo game that I own. Super Metroid.
Oh yeah. Now I'm gonna.
Because
Before you get into that though, back to the Mega Man X. Unfortunately, I didn't know Mega Man X had come to Super Nintendo, and I only found out about it through a PC version of it I had found for $3 at a secondhand shop, and it came with
the
a
one that
small.
came with the with the 6-button controller,
Yep, that one.
I got that too. I only got that because of the controller.
Yeah, me too. Really, that's really the only reason I got it. But I did play it, and I actually eventually. What?
Yeah, that was a weird port.
I already gave you two though.
and it was inferior to the Super Nintendo version, but I enjoyed it for its own weird quirks.
Sorry, someone came in while we were doing it. I just
Okay,
keep on getting interrupted.
when you put it like while we were doing it, it makes it seem
Oh, sorry, while we were talking. Goddamn.
phrasing.
Phrasing, damn it. But yeah, I only played it on the PC port, and then I went back and bought it on the Super Nintendo later on as well.
Oh God! You know what? I just realized you made me skip.
What's that?
The weird world of unlicensed NES games, which I had many,
Oh God.
mostly from Codemasters, because my mom ordered like a shitload of these gold cart Codemaster games off of like QVC off the Home Shopping Network one day.
You know what we never got
And
into?
all of them turned out to be good.
We never got into like the PC gaming back whenever Super Nintendo. No, wait, PC didn't come around till mid
Yeah.
Super Nintendo. Yeah,
We'll do computers and various computers later. I
yeah,
just want to say
yeah.
I got Firehawk, a weird progenitor to like Desert Strike that was surprisingly good. This game B-52, which is a scrolling shooter where you are literally a bee.
What?
I got The Adventures of Dizzy.
That kind of made me think about the mosquito game for PlayStation 1 for some reason.
Yeah, you have to look these up later. They are just amazing. And finally, the Micro Machines game. I think that's the one that sold it. She saw the Micro Machines and she's like, "You'd like that," and I did.
Oh, I remember that game now. Yeah, I had that as
Micro
well.
Machines.
Yeah, I had that too. It was a little racing game where you're
Yeah,
literally
where
micro machines, and you're
yeah,
going around like the kitchen and on the kitchen table and in like a living room and in a bedroom and stuff like that.
it's like a game I love because I also like the RC Pro-Am games because
Oh,
again,
yeah, I
just
remember that game. Huh. That was a fun game though.
it's like it's just the original. I had like the original Codemasters cartridge for it, so it was the
And I
weird
got
gold cart with the little switch in back.
and I got a Game Genie for every single system as well.
Oh, Game Genie. I remember you, Game Genie. The
Yeah,
weird things you did.
like Moon Jump from Mario, where you could just skip the entire every single level.
There are the weird games that I owned on Nintendo, like Low G Man, and
Oh yeah, and the fact that with the Game Genie, you actually had to get their magazine every month, or you wouldn't get new codes. Because this was before the internet, people.
remembered using the Game Genie a lot with the one I got for Sega Genesis. I never had it on Super Nintendo, but I did have the Sega Genesis one, and freaking
Mm. I still
God,
remember
I
the
love Chameleon.
I still remember the Game Boy port for the Super Nintendo that allowed
Out
you to
of all
play.
the blatant Mario ripoffs there were, Kid Chameleon was my favorite.
Well, Mario wasn't the first one to do that, though. There were plenty of platformers before Mario. I mean,
Not the way that Mario was, and not before Donkey Kong.
oh yeah,
No,
there were some. There was one for the Commodore 64 that
no,
I
there.
remember quite well. I can't remember the name of it, but
have time to start going into making you look up dates and stuff because
Yeah, I've got to go soon. God damn it. But yeah, really, I think that actually that would cover the whole. I mean, we never talked about the 16-bit thing or blast processing really, just as to mention it. But yeah, wait, oh, cause you get to
two
hidden.
ADD guys just talking about just name dropping video games for an hour. Just
Yeah, that's all we've done this entire time. Just name drop good and bad games we played.
going off on weird tangents every now and then.
Yeah, going into mental health and gender binary bullshit.
Dude, just do the outro.
Yeah, I'll just do the outro.
We'll, we'll go more in depth on certain things later.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for today. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you're interested in future content, please like this video, share it with your friends, and if you really like it, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell button in order to see future videos. My and David's Twitter and my Discord links are in the description. All that being said, have a nice day and goodbye.
Thank you for coming. We'll see you in New Jersey.